Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we actually have a snowstorm chance to talk about. It is a slim potential, but we are going to talk about it since it is our first chance outside of the Rockies or the Western United States. Anyways, before we get into things, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think there's any chance that this snowstorm will happen? Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Now, I do want to put a lot of emphasis on this. This has a good chance of not happening. It does have some chance of happening, because if a model is showing it, it is possible, and it is our first snowstorm chance at all, whether that chance is a 1% chance or a 30% chance or a 50% chance, it still is a chance and it still is our first chance. So I feel like a lot of people would be curious about it. So we're going to be talking about it today. Here is our simulated radar here. We're going to be using the GFS model because it's the primary model that is showing it, which is already a red flag, let's be real. But there is some signs on the other models that they're pretty close to showing a connection. That there is that possibility, but they're just not quite there yet. So we could see those ones come along with what the GFS is showing, or we could see the GFS go along with what they're showing, and this one just really fizzle out. There's a lot of possibilities here. Now we're starting out because we're going to talk about the general pattern too. 2 a.m. This morning, so actually earlier than I'm making this video, obviously, and you can see there's some snowfall going on out west from that monster storm. We have a nor'easter offshore of the United States on the east coast, and I've been feeling that here in Virginia. It rained a lot last night. We actually had 1 inch just yesterday, so there was a lot of rainfall going on, and I'm sure a lot of the other folks along the eastern seaboard have also felt those types of impacts. This nor'easter is actually going to stick around because by the time we're reaching Wednesday morning, you can see we have a 978 millibar low pressure center just offshore of Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, there in Nantucket as well. So we have a strong system there, probably bringing some rainfall and some wind as well alongside that rainfall for the New England states especially, but also some of the other northeastern states. We also have that monster storm dipping down into the central United States. And eventually, by the time we reach about late on Thursday, this storm will be centered over the eastern half of the country, kind of bringing some rainfall to a very widespread area. You can tell that that storm is very strong as a 992 millibar low pressure center. That is actually pretty strong for a inland system that has not been over water for a very long time. But by the time we reach Sunday morning, October 31st, you can see that Arctic blast moving in. By this point, this is going to be Halloween. We do see some snowfall there for Wyoming, Nebraska, and South Dakota. This is the beginning of that potential snowstorm. And you can see on those temperature anomalies, this is that Arctic blast. We do have some colder temperatures in the southeast, but again, like I said in yesterday's video, this is when we're going to be dealing with mostly near normal conditions in the east here. But we can see those far below normal temperatures beginning for the northwest, and they are going to blast down into the central and eastern United States after this point. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're going to move on with the simulated radar to November 1st. We're going to zoom in on that as that snowstorm develops on the very next couple of frames. Then we're going to go over the total snowfall on this model, total rainfall, because there's a good chance for flooding, and then we're going to see what the Canadian and the European models show to see how far off they are on this storm. All right, now here we are taking a look here at about, I would say this is about 2 a.m. here on Monday, November 1st. And as you can see, some moderate to heavy snowfall is developing here for Wyoming, Colorado, and Nebraska by this point. And that Arctic blast is right behind it. And basically, for this snowstorm to happen, what has to happen is this low pressure system that does develop on all three of the models, by the way. So that is something that all three of the models have. But that low pressure system needs to really ride along that cold front that is developed from this Arctic blast. If it does that on the northern end of the precipitation along that storm, there will be snowfall. But if it develops much further south and heads away from where that Arctic air is, there's obviously no chance for snowfall. That's especially what the European model shows, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. Now let's take a look at by time we're reaching about later on November 1st, the morning time. And we can see that heavy snowfall developing here for Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas as well. You could tell those blue lines are where that Arctic blast is located. So this storm is right on that line. And basically what happens by the time we're reaching very late on Monday is this storm continues to move further east. And now we have some moderate snowfall for New Mexico and Colorado, but also the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, as well as portions of Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, and Iowa by this point. And the one thing I will say is this storm does appear like it will be a very quick moving storm. And if it does play out this way, the snowfall won't have very long to accumulate, and that ground temperature is already going to be very warm. So we're going to need to, if this by some chance does end up really being what's going to happen, we're going to need to pay attention to the ground temperatures and the speed of this storm. But again, you're going to see on our confidence tab, it's not high. All right, it's not high at this point, but I do find this to be an interesting topic this time of year. But I'm trying to be as transparent with that as possible. Now, as we move towards the morning hours of Tuesday, November 2nd, you can see a lot of that snowfall moves up into mostly Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and now Illinois and southern Wisconsin as well. And there's a lot of rainfall happening on the southern extent of this storm. Obviously, you can tell it's developing that cold front as that Arctic blast moves in. And this will, again, bring a flooding risk with it alongside those other storms that we're going to have here in the central and the eastern United States. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on. We're going to see the very tail end of that storm, and then we're going to take a look at the total snowfall on this model. And then we're going to take a look at the total rainfall as well, which is just shocking. And then we're also going to take a look at what the other models show with this storm, like I said. All right, now here's my time we're taking a look at later on Tuesday morning, better yet. And as you can see, still Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, and then portions of Wisconsin. But now we see Indiana and Michigan getting involved potentially as well with some of that moderate to heavy snowfall, according to this model. And what ends up happening is this storm moves too fast for the Arctic blast, and it curves northward with that Arctic blast because it still hasn't moved into the eastern United States by this point. Very late on Tuesday night. And this one moves up into Canada, bringing still some snowfall maybe to Michigan and Indiana, but that one's going to be quickly coming to an end, as you can see by the time we reach Wednesday afternoon. We do have some snowfall going on for the northern extents of Michigan and also a lot of the Upper Peninsula. I bet that has something to do with the low pressure system, but also with that lake effect snowfall that we've said there's a chance for. Also notice there's some very heavy rainfall coming down for the northeastern corner of the United States. Again, that's going to play a part in that potential flooding as well. And once we take a look at the total snowfall, you can see there's a lot of it going on for the Rockies, the West, and then the Central with this snowstorm. But what I want to do is zoom in here so we can see the amounts on screen. Again, this is a very quick mover, and this isn't taking into account the ground temperatures. But for the Rockies, there's not just this snowstorm, there's actually multiple. So this is not just from this single snowstorm. But as you can see, over the next, 10 to 15 days, we could expect to see 1 to 2 to even 3 feet of snowfall for the southern Rockies. That seems to be how things have gone every single 15-day period since like middle of September. But we can see that for Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, that is where we're mostly seeing the 2 to 6 inch amounts there in the blue, and then the 6 to 10 inch amounts there in the purple. So not taking into account ground temperatures, that is what this model is calling for. I would say probably with the ground temperatures taken into consideration, the purples will pretty much be, taken out of consideration unless it's extremely heavy snowfall. But again, this storm is still a low probability thing that we need to treat that way. Total rainfall, a lot of it is expected. If you're anywhere in the grays, greens, or blues, that's under an inch. Yellows are going to be 1 inch to 2 inches. Reds are going to be 2 to 5 inches. And then browns are going to be 5 to 10 inches. And then those blues that we see for New York City, Long Island, and then some of the areas in New York, north of New York City, that is where we're expecting 10 to 15 inches of rainfall potentially over the course of the next 15 days. So a very large amount of rainfall is expected for the eastern half of the country, as you can see, as pretty much everywhere gets in that 2 to 5 inch region for the next 15 days. Could be a very rainy period. Now, for the Canadian model, here's what happens. We see this snowstorm develop for the Rockies around the same time frame, a little bit later, actually. But what ends up happening is it just stays there. It doesn't move. So this is by the 4th. The first frame was the 1st, the 4th. This storm has not moved at all. I don't know what's going on there, but that model does not show the same thing as the GFS for that reason. The European model also has this storm developing. Same time period as the Canadian model, actually, a little bit later than the GFS model has it. But what's really going on is this storm dives down south and doesn't meet up with the Arctic blast, because by the 4th, you can see the low pressure center is over Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. That's where a lot of the precipitation is happening. And the Arctic blast is to the northeast of there. So it just doesn't connect. But the big thing is that all three of these models have a storm. It's just they're not seeing eye to eye on what's going to happen with that storm, obviously. Now, for our confidence tab, we're at a pathetically low 2 out of 6, obviously. Again, This is one of the more exciting times for me every single year is when we start to see the chances for snowstorms actually in the central and eastern United States, and this is our first chance, so I wanted to share that with you guys. Also, I had nothing else to talk about, so this isn't like I picked this over something important. I've covered the big storm out west, I've covered the upcoming cooldown, and outside of that, this was the next biggest story right now. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys yesterday, how far below normal on the temperatures do you think we could get during this big cooldown in eastern Iowa weather and don't know what the rest says, couldn't figure it out, said this cold weather, or sorry, this cold wave will be about 15 to 30 degrees below average at minimum, maybe more. And I think that for very exclusive regions, that could be the case. We could see that 15 to 30 degree below normal region, but certainly, 5 to 15 is going to be pretty widespread if this does play out the way the European model has shown. For today's Patreon highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovin Eagle, Lil the Pan, Mandy Birchfield, and Patrick Strickland as well. I would also like to thank our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Miko Kodalesa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, City Klein, Alan Goodmaben, Bill Dallas, Gary, John Khaleesi, Dwight Phelan, Stephen Granenthal, and Thomas D. Barr as well. If you'd like to be a part of this very awesome Patreon entry of the day, you can do so by joining our very amazing Patreon page in the description and in the pinned comments down below. I would also like to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox as well. If you'd like to join this one, it'll be located next to the subscribe button down below. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.